The president and CEO of Richmond Brothers, Matt Curfman. Hi, Matt.
Hi, Bart.
Welcome back.
Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you today?
Good. I had a comment on your real estate in Park Woods. I can attest that's a beautiful neighborhood. I grew up living in there.
That's right. You're a product of Vandercook Lake.
Product of Vandercook Lake, and there is some beautiful property in that neighborhood. Back, we were talking about ages. I was in high school in Vandercook in the 90s, and my parents built a house in that neighborhood, and it is close to everything, and it is beautiful.
There you go. Another reason to buy and call Heather. How's the summer been for you?
It's been busy, been able to travel a little bit, but also have a little downtime. And other than this weekend, enjoy the beautiful weather we've had outside and the parks and the trails.
I was glad. I loved Saturday. I loved a rainy Saturday.
Kind of sit inside and watch movies, watch British spy novel movies. Is that what you said?
The Wells Fargo. No, what was the tournament? The FedEx
the golf tournament.
Golf tournament.
Yep.
That was very exciting. Will Zalatoris winning his first tournament in sudden death. It was a pretty exciting finish.
All the way down to the end.
Yeah, it was. So while you were out of town, inflation, it seems to have elicited some concerns among people that it's impacting. At the gas station, grocery store, people now back to school shopping.
Sure.
We're seeing the higher prices. So where do you think we are with that?
Well, a couple of things. One, it's really challenging for the individual. We know that as prices go up, most businesses and corporations aren't nice enough to just absorb those costs. They want their margins, and so usually those get passed through to the consumer. And you mentioned fuel. Fuel is probably one of the biggest factors that we watch because as oil prices go up, it challenges almost every sector, anything that has to be shipped or dispersed around the country or the world. So it's actually nice that a couple of weeks ago, maybe a week and a half ago, we did get a reading that we're starting to see oil prices come back down. So it's possible, though unknown yet, if inflation has already peaked and it's starting to cool a little bit, both from a standpoint of the Federal Reserve starting to raise the short-term rate and fuel prices coming down. So hopefully, cross all of our fingers, that means some relief for individuals as it comes to back-to-school shopping and really everything. Anyone who has to commute or buy goods, buy products, it's challenging, and it's not like we haven't had a challenging couple of years with the pandemic and everything else to begin with. So it's kind of a 1-2 sucker punch, it seems.
I noticed just driving around over the weekend, the gas prices, they have come down. They're down, $3.80 some, which when the Federal Reserve said they were, making these incremental increases, that they were designed to do what appears to be exactly what's happening.
Sure. Yeah, and it's kind of the reading we got last week with inflation kind of not escalating even higher, which was, some analysts thought that could happen, but the actual inflation reading is a lagging indicator, right? So no one was talking up until that day how fuel prices had dropped 30 or 40% from their previous high, but that number was now into that measurement, and so we hope that that's a good sign, but these are really, we've had the highest inflation we've had in 40 or 50 years. And so most people, if you're working, if you're retired, and that's a lot of who our client base is, it becomes challenging on fixed incomes to all of a sudden have these higher costs, and yet historically, everyone says, hey, in a high inflation environment, you should own stocks. Well, that has clearly not worked out so far this year. That's been really challenging as well.
And the other thing too, and typically in the past when inflation has risen, buying slows, and it's not happened. People are they're spending money like crazy.
Yeah.
So is that good for anyone?
Well, so on that comment, we had talked about just a little bit of travel, and this year I've really started to attend some different conferences. Other financial advisors from around the country and different events. And I would even tell you that going through airports in the last 3 to 6 months, I have never seen more people any time of day, any day of the week. So people are spending money.
Yeah.
And so that kind of gets to another point is usually if we're moving into recession or have any concerns, with higher inflation, consumers usually really stall their spending, and that starts to slow down the economy, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Unemployment, though, is really low, and jobs growth is still really strong, so it's a very odd dynamic economically we find ourselves in.
How about the stock market? What's the impact? What's that been like? Because I think early on, as we started to see the warnings signs about higher prices, that the stock market was going to, we were going to see some maybe downturn in the
Sure.
market.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk right now. I would say this isn't a factual estimate, but probably half of the analysts that track the market, if you go read the financial headlines, actually believe that the market has bottomed and hit its bottom in the middle of June, and we're slowly starting to come back out of that. There's another camp of analysts that suggests this is kind of call it a bear market rally. Bear market is anytime the broad indexes drop 20%, which is a really, really big swing from their previous high. You know, one of the bigger questions we're asking ourselves at Richmond Brothers in order to better serve our clients as we move forward, you know, what if having a bear market every other year is the new norm? You know, we had one in 2018, we had one in 2020, now we had one in 2022. Prior to 2018, if you look at most of the broad benchmarks, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, for example, historically a bear market happened only once every 5 to 7 years. And so we're asking the question, especially working with retirees, where you might have a 35, 30, 25-year window to draw your money down or take a lifetime income stream. You know, how many cycles like this can people go through before, one, they lose their mind because they don't want to be on those roller coasters. And so, you know, are there other tools, are there other strategies, and just being open to, you know, maybe everything I've been taught about buy and hold all of my life and all of my financial programs and degrees, we're just questioning that to say, is that still the right strategy? Most individuals are not the Harvard Endowment Fund that can buy for 100 years. You know, you have a limited window of time, and so it's more about how much time do you have in the market?
Right.
What is your risk tolerance? Not trying to time the market.
So we'll see, you know, more of a up and down curve.
Sure.
But for those that have 10, 15, 20 years to sit on their money, it really doesn't matter what happens between point A and point B,
Sure.
as long as point B is up when they cash out.
There you go. And that's the hard thing, is if you had a 20-year window, when do you need your funds and how much of them do you need? Because as a retiree, most retirees are using that nest egg to create an income stream or take money out. So it becomes more challenging through these bear market cycles. So we're just trying to look at some different strategies that may be out there and maybe look with a different lens than most people look.
Something other than stock market.
Yeah, something outside of the stock market, and even in the stock market, are there different strategies you can employ, you know, with maybe considering some safety nets and maybe cutting some of those extreme downsides that we've seen, 20, 30% bear markets. You know, and I think another unlooked at asset when you think about retirement is housing wealth. And so we try to look and ask ourselves the question, ask retirees, are you willing to use all available assets to help your plan bring down risk, add more consistency, lower taxes? There's a lot of strategies outside of the market you can incorporate.
And you know, there's a lot of marketing being done to retirees and seniors. The Tom Selleck type ads, which, you know, to me it's scary to me that there are people that are, you know, selling things that might be taking advantage of
Sure.
people, and that might not be the right answer. How should people respond when they see, you know, things that sound too good to be true?
So that's a really good question, and I've seen the Tom Selleck commercials. They are maybe a bit cheesy, if that's the right word. That said, I would just encourage any consumer to go out and find accurate information and get educated and informed. 5 years ago, I attended a tax law conference with Ed Slott. We've had him come to Jackson before. And he had brought in a keynote speaker, someone who spoke on housing wealth in retirement. And it was mind-blowing to me. And I've been in this business in Jackson since the late 90s. And I thought, well, these commercials are not accurate. It's just people are misinformed. So I went out and got educated. It's not even a product or anything we sell. It's a way to incorporate real estate into your plan. And there are some pretty fascinating tools to utilize that most people are just unaware of, or they're afraid of. Oh, I've heard that Tom Selleck commercial, and you run for the hills. You'd think that people are crazy who want to look at that.
Well, it's not his first rodeo. So we've got inflation, shrinkflation.
Maybe,
Have you
yeah.
noticed there's less cheese puffs in the bag? How do people that are on fixed income,
Sure.
we do get some good news for people collecting Social Security that last week they announced there's going to be a cost of living adjustment next year.
Come January 1st.
Yep, so that's good news.
Absolutely.
But right now, you know, the money coming in every month, it's the same. Prices are changing. How do you recommend any strategies for retirees?
Sure. So, I mean, when you think about inflation and cost of living, I think the two ways that a retiree can deal with it. One, you have to build a plan that accounts for a growing income. So, but if you didn't do that or you're not able to do that, the other thing really to do is take a look at your expenses. You know, do you have any debts that in the next 6 to 12 months, maybe your payments wind down? Now all of a sudden on the same income, that's just more free cash flow. So we always try to look at both sides, not just always saying, hey, we have to grow the income. You're right, Social Security for this next year in 2023 is going to have another decent bump for retirees, which is really, really good for now. Certainly adds to the longer equation of what happens to Social Security long term. But to help retirees in this market and higher prices, it's a really good thing. And hopefully, like we started, we have inflation maybe has already peaked, and maybe it starts to work its way back down to where the Federal Reserve would really like to see it, in that 2-3% range, not 8 or 9%.
Well, that's really good to hear, Matt. I trust what you say. I know how much you pay attention to all things financial, so that is a piece of good news.
Thank you.
How about events? You mentioned Ed Slott. You brought people in the past, and I know the pandemic's kind of changed how you do some things, but
Sure.
anything coming up?
Yeah, so we have, I think I sent the date in. I forgot my sheet of paper here. It's in August.
August 30th at 6 p.m.
August 30th at 6 p.m. we're hosting, Richmond Brothers is hosting a virtual event on actually that very topic of housing, wealth, and retirement. And really, so if someone said, hey, that's very interesting, I'd like to learn more, it's really just an educational event. And we have attendees coming from all around the country. And our presenter is out of Pennsylvania, and he happens to be a professor at the Wharton School of Business, and he teaches financial advisors all around the country on this topic. And so it's quite an engaging way to just get information and educate and share and put that out there. So on our website, richmondbrothers.com, there is a link at the top, which would be where anyone could go in the public, doesn't have to be a client of ours, if they're interested in attending that event.
Sounds cool. And I know we'll see you at Bright Walls. You guys are a sponsor of that again this year.
Very excited for the Bright Walls Festival, and that we get to have another big event in downtown Jackson with maybe early fall weather and artists from all over the world coming in. A big fan of Clay McAndrews and the whole group that puts that event together. It's quite incredible.
It is. They're amazing. Great to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me, Bart. Appreciate it.
Nice to see you. President and CEO of Richmond Brothers, Matt Curfman. Up next, some celebrating. It's the Jennifer Scanlon Birthday Club.